Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another live stream. Hopefully you guys are ready to rock and roll today. Again, my apologies for being a little extra late today. We're having some inclement weather outside. It's literally raining cats and dogs, and so therefore I had to wait a few minutes before I could go live. Hopefully you guys can see me. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Please let me know. You know how everything's coming in, because it's still, again, extremely cloudy out there, rainy and all that good stuff. But anywho's, with all that being said, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about freedom. There's freedom living out here in Mexico, and why I love it out here so much, and why some people might not like it out here so much, because again, that freedom goes both ways. I personally love all the freedom. Not everybody does. But either way, I know a lot of you guys do, and this is what we're going to be, talking about today. And as you guys know, I'll be taking your questions and all that good stuff. Today we're just going to be showing you in the background just a bunch of random footage of my days out here in Mexico, Mérida, Yucatan, when I first moved out here, and so on and so forth. There's a video I posted on my channel many years ago, just talking about my journey and things like that. But either way, welcome everybody. Glad to have you. But yeah, guys, at the end of the day, freedom, that's the main reason why I love Mexico so much. There's a million reasons why I love it. All right. The food, the culture, the weather, in this particular case, living out here where I live, despite the rain. But at the end of the day, the part of the culture is the freedom, and how they uphold that freedom and stuff like that. And we talk about it here on the channel in multiple ways, in different ways, all right? Because that freedom takes hold in many different scenarios, in a sense. You know what I mean? And so recently we talked about the whole digital ID, and the digitalization of Mexico and all that stuff. And again, I was telling you guys how basically the freedom that the people have, and the freedom that the people uphold here, that they're always protecting and make sure they have. Again, no place is perfect, but in the sense that the population here, the people know that they got the power, and many times they push back against the government and its laws and its mandates and so on and so forth. And again, it's not to say that living in Mexico is a free-for-all, and there are no laws, there's no kind of enforcement of any kind or anything like that, because that's not true. There is. It's very safe out here. And again, it's to me, it's safer here than most of the USA these days. And a lot of that comes just from the people themselves, that they basically are the ones that, take the lead in protecting themselves, their community, and so on and so forth. And, they're not expecting a government or corrupt police or whatever it is, to bail them out or save them or anything like that. Again, the reason that the government and the police and a lot of these things don't have as much power as they do in the USA is because, well, the people don't give them as much power. And, the power that they do have is just totally corrupted. So look, long story short, again, we all know this is the situation all over the world. There's no different out here, except that out here, again, the people, because the fact that the government doesn't have as much power or influence or whatever it is, well, the people just basically run the show. And this is why the majority of the economy is in the informal economy. This is why, the people just basically dance around, all the rules and regulations and everything. And it's just a different world out here. And, to me, I love it personally because, I come from the USA, and, back when I was living in the USA, I never felt free. I never felt any kind of freedom out there. There's always a law that everyone's breaking. There's always rules and regulations. There's always something. It's always something. And, one of the things that I just love about living out here in Mexico is just that, I come from the fact that I get to just breathe, air. I get to just breathe easy. I don't have to always be looking over my shoulder. I don't always have to be worried, whether or not I'm breaking a law, whether or not there's a police officer hiding behind a trash can, whatever it is. And it's just a completely different world out here. And to me, it doesn't matter whether Mexico keeps getting more expensive, or obviously things change out here, because at the end of the day, as long as the underlying culture doesn't change, why would I ever want to leave? You know what I mean? Like, they're freedom loving individuals out here, and so am I. And I think so are a lot of you guys out there. hmm And the thing is that, like, for example, by the way, shout out to Pablo, saying there's no better place to be than Merida. That's right. Merida's awesome. I love it out here. But I had people recently leaving the comments, talking about like, oh, Mexico's turning into what is it, the New World Order, and they have cameras everywhere, and they got like, whatever, all this technology everywhere, and I'm like, man, you guys obviously don't know how Mexico runs and how things are out here. Again, as I've demonstrated and shown you guys here, multiple times, that the reality is that it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter even if they catch you red-handed on camera, you know what I mean? If the police officer, is too busy eating his sandwich, that's what's going to be taking priority over your, stolen DVD player or whatever it is that they took from you. By the way, do they even have DVD players anymore? I was about to say VCR, it's like that goes to show my age, huh? But yeah, long story short, it's just a different world out here. And, to me, it comes, with good, the bad, the ugly, obviously. You know what I mean? There's, depending on where you come from will depend on, how much rules and regulations, you're looking for. But, for me, the reality is that I would rather live in a place that has very little rules and regulation, and they're working their way towards setting some rules and regulations and things like that. Like, one prime example is real estate. So real estate out here in Mexico, but we're going to talk specifically and particularly here about the Yucatan, but again, we're talking about Mexico in general. Real estate is basically how do I say this, like open territory for everybody. Anybody, okay, literally can become a realtor or sell real estate legally, because there's no kind of, licenses, there's no kind of real laws to protect people, there's no rules or regulations, none of that stuff. But because of the boom that Mexico's been having in recent years, basically a few years ago, Mexico passed a law requiring everybody to have a certain license, a certain accreditation in order to be able to sell real estate. And very recently, I was just literally reading this online like a couple days ago, that the Yucatan, right here where we live here in Merida, the state of the Yucatan passed its own law, with its own requirements on, the licenses and, all the, paperwork, all the stuff that you need to be accredited, all the things that you need to do in order to be a real estate agent. Because what would happen is that if there's no kind of rules or regulations or anything like that, well, then it's a free-for-all. And so what was going on is that, well, basically, that's why you would be seeing all kinds of scams and all kinds of situations happening, through Mexico when it came to real estate. But now, if they have, some sort of, regulatory board, in order to accredit, individuals, and these people that are getting their real estate license have to go through some sort of education, some sort of schooling in order to blah, blah, blah. Also, they'll have a special license in case something goes wrong. Someone is now held accountable, and that could go on and on. And it's funny because José was telling me, José Novelo, you guys know him from the show, that he was working on getting his Yucatecan, accreditation, and that he was in the first class or the first, group of people going for this. And I didn't even know it was a thing. And then I saw a couple days ago on the news, on the local news, that they passed it. It's a thing, it's like literally a new law out here. So that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, there are rules, there are laws, there are regulations, all this stuff. Again, how it works out here is that, I'm not expecting everybody to all of a sudden automatically, start following the law. You already know that there's a bunch of expats, a bunch of foreigners, selling real estate. There's a bunch of people, selling real estate out there, Mexicans that, haven't even graduated high school, and so on and so forth. And so now all of a sudden, again, you need a real estate license. You need to, have some sort of, again, I don't know the details. We'll find out the details from José eventually when we talk about it. But yeah, but that's the thing. And so like they're moving in that direction. All right, so there you go. You know what I mean? So, and I can go on and look right now where you see the buses. Look at all the buses that you see there. Now, the lack of regulation when it comes to mass transit and buses and things like that allow for all of a sudden, like one of the things that happened here in recent years is that they had they've installed all these brand new buses, you know, the brand new blue buses that are all nice and fancy with air conditioner and things like that. Everything's great about the bus except for one thing, that in order for you to use the bus, you need to pay digitally. So people have to get like a special card. They got to fill it, you know, with credit, whatever. And then that's the card that they can use in order to use the bus. Okay. And obviously, there's been a lot of people, you know, that have not been able to use the bus because, well, they just don't have the digital imprint and they don't want to get it or whatever it is. And again, as they were phasing the new buses in, they were phasing the old buses out. But guess what? Since there's freedom out here, basically the reason that the old buses were phased out is because, well, the new ones, everyone was riding the new ones. But when all of a sudden the new buses were only, you know, basically for a select group of people that wanted to get the card and get digitized, and there was a large group of individuals out there that were still left out, or again, the grid did not catch up to them, well, the private buses, the old buses, you know, they came back online, and now you see all the buses. And again, whether you want to pay in cash, you know, whether you live in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't matter. There's a bus, there's a service, there's anything. In fact, right now we have an even more robust system, because before, when it was only the old buses, well, there wasn't enough buses to go around. Now that we got the new buses, okay, you know, to basically take care of the city, take care of the tourists, take care of, you know, whatever, right? Now all of a sudden the old buses, they have expanded and they've been able to, you know, reach more people and so on and so forth. And I could go on and on. You know what I mean? The freedom out here, you know what I mean? To be able to conduct business, you know, the freedom out here, again, you know, you don't need, you know, all these, you know, licenses and you don't need to, you know, constantly be passing all these inspections and having to deal with the government and things like that. Now, again, of course, you need a business license. Of course, depending on what you're selling, you might need a special kind of license or accreditation or whatever it is. If you're obviously, let's say you're selling food, you might need a food handler's permit. You might need to pass inspection, things like that. But again, it all depends, you know what I mean? Like on the type of business that you have. Okay, obviously the taco stand, you know, across the street, he doesn't have to deal with, you know, business license. He doesn't have to deal with the food inspector. He doesn't have to deal with any of these things. If you want to have a nice fancy restaurant, then you do have to deal with those things. Okay, and I can go on and on. And so, like, that's the thing, you know, out here, I know Mexico's not perfect, but it allows people, you know what I mean, the freedom to live however they want to live. Look, do you see that guy right there selling things on the beach? Do you think that that guy is going to get digitized anytime soon? You know, you'll be lucky. I mean, if he even has a cell phone. A lot of times I'll talk to people like that, and the cell phone that they have is not a smartphone. They don't have a smartphone like we do. Oh no. You know what I mean? They have like those little, like the old school phones that is just for, you know, the texting. You remember when you had to press the, you know, like the number 3, 4 times, you know what I mean, in order to get the letter? Okay, the old type of texting, and they don't use the texting, you know, it's just for phone calls. So, I mean, and you know how many people just, if they have a cell phone, because a lot of people think like, oh yeah, all these people in all these villages have all these fancy cell phones. No, they don't. No, they don't. Some people do, but not really. And so, oh, okay. My apologies. You know, let me know about sorry about the video. Again, it's just the weather outside. You know, oh man, hopefully you guys have been getting my messages there. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know if you guys can hear me, if the sound is coming through okay. If the video's glitching, my apologies, but at least hopefully if you can hear me. So, but sound is okay. All right, good. Thank you. So we got Ultra Studman says, I've had enough of these Mexican cops and their random checkpoints demanding ID or go to jail crap. What, I mean, where is this? Where is this happening? Where is that happening? You know what I mean? What a guy have to do to peacefully sit on a bus without guns, boarding, making a show for ID and crap. So where is this happening? I would like to know, because you know, one thing is, you know, what a comment online by a random, you know, and show me some evidence. I would like to know. I mean, because I don't know where that's happening. Now again, there are checkpoints. You know, obviously, you know, there are, you know, cops, you know, out there. Okay, I just came back from the States. Oh wait, I just came back from Morelia. Okay, that was somebody else. That was but anyways, there are corrupt cops out there. Again, the more you know Spanish, the better you can get around, from having to, deal with them, in the sense that, like, if you speak Spanish, you can call them on their bull crap, okay? And you don't have to pay, any kind of bribe. You can just tell them, give me a ticket, give me this, give me that. A lot of times I got friends of mine that don't speak any Spanish, and they just play the dumb gringo and they just let them go. So I don't know, you know what I mean? I've heard stories, in the past, when there was a lot of immigration issues, if you were in the southern border and you were traveling without a passport, and yeah, you could have a problem. Okay? But yeah, other than that, you know what I mean? Or if you're in the northern border in certain areas, there are certain areas that are notorious for corrupt police officers, all right? Like Tijuana, or even certain parts of Mexico City, all right? There are parts where there are cartels. So, I mean, look, you got to be more specific, all right, as to what's going on out there, because that's the thing, that's another thing too. You're gonna always hear all kinds of things online. You're gonna hear my point of view, telling you everything's hunky dory. You're gonna be hearing things online, whether it's some random comment in a video or some random Facebook post or whatever. And so to me, it's like this. What I do, okay, is I like to provide evidence. Whenever I'm traveling, no matter wherever I'm going, I like to video, record everything so you guys can see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. But that's why I record everything, so I can have my evidence to back up what I say. You follow me? And so that's the thing. By the way, if you're seeing everyone wearing a mask, this is old footage from many years ago, okay, back during the COVID days, okay, just FYI, right? So just so you can see how it was out here, okay? Things were still functioning, all right? Okay, capiche, all right? But this is very old footage, all right, from back in the day. But yeah, that's the thing. And so to me, it's like, that you can, there's a lot of people, everybody has an opinion, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about things like this, it's like, show me the facts, show me, the actual evidence. And that's all it is. So, Adrian says, I've encountered fake checkpoints on the road. Nothing bad has happened, and I travel from Juarez to Guadalajara. Yeah, there you go. Come on now. So Ultra says, and they attack me when I film them, and they take my camera and delete my videos. Oh, come on, man, get out of here. You know what? Leave Mexico. It's probably for the best, all right? Ultra, or whoever it is. Ultra, I don't even know who it is. Anyway, Studman. Listen, Studman, if you're having that much problems, it's best not to be here. Go where you're treated best. And that's all it is. If you're obviously getting harassed out here, if you're one of the few people that's getting harassed out here, don't be here. Go somewhere else. It's totally fine. The reason I'm here is because I was constantly getting harassed in the USA. I think for a lot of people that are moving to Mexico, is because they're getting sick and tired of getting harassed in the USA now more than ever. So they rather just, live here. And so it happens both ways. Listen, I have met people. Okay, I have met plenty of people, all right, living out here in Mexico, Americans, okay, and Mexicans, but we're just talking about Americans right now, Canadians, whatever, that have had similar experiences, Ultra Studman. I've met them, they live here, and to me, it's like, I don't understand, like, I don't know, what's going on. I do know what's going on. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I'll just give you an example. So, like, you see David right there? David comes out in the videos all the time. David and his wife, they're awesome. They love to adventure and travel. They have been all over the Yucatan Peninsula, okay? They go out all the time. They never had any problems. They've been up and down, Mexico, never had a problem. Never had a problem, besides car issues, and then having some Mexicans save their ass, okay? Other than that, they've never had any issues. In fact, the only issue they ever once had was close to the U.S. border, okay? All right, and that's it, So, look, long story short, and it wasn't the Federales or anything like that. It was just some weird truck that was following them, and as they got close to the border, the truck left. That's all it was, all right? And who knows what that was, it might have been paranoia, for all you know. But look, all I'm saying is, okay, that I've now going on, the people that I've met and I've talked to out here that hate it out here or have issues out here, basically, the longer I've known them, the more I realize, oh, wait a minute, the issue is you. The issue is not the Mexicans or the people around it's you. the individual. So, again, because like I said, David doesn't even, he speaks like 5 words of Spanish, for crying out loud, and he's been all over. All right. And we travel all the time. We do videos all the time. I know plenty of people out here, all the time. And we know mutual friends, again, that just hate it out here. Or, again, they've gone back just because they've had all kinds of issues. And it's insane to us because, at first we didn't understand why these, certain individuals will have so many issues out here until we got to know them more personally. And then we realized, oh, okay, this is why they're having all these issues. They're just, special. All right, I'll leave it at that. So it is what it is. Okay, we're all very different, and this is why we're talking about freedom, and we're talking about what life is like out here. Because, for example, out here, a lot of people that are individuals that love their rules and their regulation and their safety, and again, they want that kind of lifestyle. Well, they're not going to get it out here. They're not going to find it out. Again, you're going to find safety, but the safety, okay, is not like this fake safety as they're like, oh, I'm going to call 911 and the cops are going to show up. No, the safety comes, again, just simply from situational awareness, knowing your surroundings, building a community, knowing your neighbors, okay? Perhaps, again, having bars on your window to deter anyone from, just showing up, whether it's an animal or just some stray, whatever. And that's the thing. It's just, it's not for everybody. If anything ever were to happen, most people don't blame, oh, why didn't the cops show up? It's more like, man, why didn't you protect your stuff? That kind of stuff, So it's just a different world out here. And, for me, I love the fact that, there is a lack of this, all these rules and regulations, because I don't ever have to worry about the cops, constantly harassing me and anyone else out here. In the USA, you could be just, you can get arrested for jaywalking, for crying out loud. I've seen people getting arrested in the USA just for walking with a cane. I mean, don't get me started. And out here in Mexico, in order for you to get actually arrested, you have to really do some stuff. All right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Obviously it happens, okay? But that's the thing. It's a different world out here, And so, for me, and for a lot of individuals out there, we prefer living out here. And, we prefer to deal with the situations out here and the freedom out here, as opposed to dealing with the situations in our home countries, where a lot of us feel like we don't have any freedoms left. I'm not saying that there isn't any freedom in the USA, but as you guys already know, the freedom is for certain individuals living certain lifestyles. If you want to live on the street like a bum, Like, yeah, no problem. You can do drugs on the street. You can, take a dump on the street. You can do whatever you want and you're not going to get arrested. You can steal from the Walmart, from the Walgreens, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Okay. Now, if you're a regular citizen, you can't even double park, without getting a ticket. You can't even go over the line, without having a police officer, wanting to search your car. You can't, give me a break, okay? And obviously, if you're in the elites, if you have money, if you've got power, you're obviously, just like the bums, you can take a dump in the middle of the street. Just like Trump said, like, I could kill somebody right here in the middle of the street and they won't be able to do anything about it. You can't even insult somebody in the middle of the street, okay? You can't even misgender somebody in the middle of the street or whatever it is. All right, in the USA, or many countries these days, without getting arrested. All right, so out here I can say what I want. Again, basically I can say what I want, and the repercussions will be met immediately. If I'm all of a sudden on the street insulting people, I'm probably gonna get my ass beat up. You know what I mean? And the cops are not gonna do anything about it. But the cops are simply gonna ask, "Hey, why are you beating him? Why are you beating this guy up?" Oh, because he's out there insulting people and yelling at old ladies and. Man, no problem. The cops are like, all right, proceed, carry on. Sorry for disturbing you guys. So, again, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, but for me, just the freedom, man. The freedom of, being able to, live a life out here that it's just a dream in the USA. Again, like George Carlin said, in order to believe the American dream, you got to be asleep. And, that's the thing. And so out here in Mexico, I've been able to achieve the American dream. And how do I know? I mean, I've achieved the American dream in the USA before. Obviously, more difficult each and every time. But out here, it's been a lot easier, and I've been able to do, more things with my life. And I have in my opinion, I feel like I have a better life now than I ever did in the USA. But that's just me personally. You know what I mean? And a lot of that just came from the freedom that I can, live the life that I want to live and do what I want to do. As long as I'm not hurting anybody, as long as I'm not, again, being a nuisance to society, even then. But still, as long as I'm not, again, literally, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, destroying property or anything like that, I could live my life. In fact, my neighbors love me. My community loves me. People love me out here. I know I have a lot of haters out there. Trust me, I know I do. But I also have a lot of people that love me that don't even know what I do. They just know, me as Jose from the neighborhood, from the community. They know me through my wife. I'm just a regular citizen out here. When people ask me what I do, it's like, oh, I just make some videos for YouTube. Oh, okay. Oh, wow, that's cool. That's it. Whatever. Again, the few people that do ask me, because not everybody knows me from YouTube, okay? And that's the thing, it's just like this freedom out here that is just unmatched. It's unmatched, Like, so we got Ms. Linda Allen saying, another great informative video. Thank you. Love the look of that shrimp dinner. What is it called? Oh, I don't know what it was. I don't know. I think it was ceviche we had there. But that's at this restaurant called El Marlin. By the way, I have the link on my website. On my website, I got tons of links, all right, of all kinds of stuff. All right, so that you guys can check out, my favorite places and all this other stuff. In fact, let's just check out the website real quick. A little segue. But again, right on my website, again, I got my videos. I got all kinds of free information, okay? Free info, all right? But let's say you're coming out here to Mérida, Yucatan, and you want to go to the shrimp place, the seafood restaurant that I showed in the video. And I have it here, okay, on, the Mérida link, the Mérida web page, okay? But anyways, I also have many other links, again, for those of you guys that are looking to move out here and you need any kind of assistance, meaning you need to find a rental, you need someone to help translate, you need someone to help you, transportation, pick you up from the airport, drive you around to find homes, whatever you need. You can contact Alejandra. If you need a lawyer, if you need a real estate agent, you need someone that knows what's up, again, Jose Novelo, you got him right there. You need glasses. If you need dentists, you got my homies there. And what else do we have? Oh yeah, all kinds of information, things to do out here in Mérida. But all the way at the bottom, again, La Sicilia, go visit my friends there. Down here at the bottom, I got links to some of my favorite restaurants. We got La Pequeña Susana, we got El Lucero. You definitely got to check it out. I love that. El Marlin Azul, that's the restaurant that I just we just showed you there, okay? So, and again, the links will take you straight to the Google page, okay? But yeah, that's it. So please, check out my website. Again, tons of free information, free resources. Look, right at the top, free moving to Mexico resources. So again, you need to find a rental on your own. You don't, let's just say you don't want to hire anybody and you speak Spanish, or you're confident enough that you can find yourself a place. I teach you how to do it there. You need a job. I teach you how to find one there. What else? Top 20 questions I get asked. You need a banking solution. You need an apostille. You need to learn Spanish quickly. You need to get your citizenship. Okay. Residency options. All right. I can go on and on. All right. How to get a home loan. Let's say you need a loan to purchase a property. Again, I got tons of free information. If you don't want to sift through my videos and you want to just have a one-on-one consultation with me, you can just do that. Again, you can book your consultation there with me and you can ask me anything you want. All right. And I'll answer it for you. Okay. Also, again, if you want to help support the show, all the links are there as well. You can also buy a t-shirt like this one. Look at this. I made this t-shirt. Amazing, amazing artwork. Look at this. Wow. All right. We can also buy a t-shirt. We got the store there all the way at the top. Okay. So we got all kinds of stuff, all kinds of gear, for in case you're interested in anything like that. And that's it. I think that's it. All right, let's just get back to the show. My apologies there. A little random plug. The show is sponsored by me. I sponsored myself. All right, so let's see where we're at. Let me see if we got any questions. Yeah, and that's it. At the end of the day, the freedom out here is unmatched. When I was living in the USA, I never felt freedom. I just never felt right. we were always told all these things about freedom and how free we are and all this other stuff. But I guess my, dumb ass, was always challenging that freedom. Like, hey, let's see if we really do have that freedom. And only to quickly realize that we don't have any freedom, or as much freedom as we thought we did. And then seriously, when I moved to Mexico, that was my biggest surprise. I'm not going to lie to you. My biggest surprise was the freedom. I mean, that's one of the main things that I talk about here on the channel, is just the freedom that we have out here to just live your life. And everybody is just amazing, you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't even know what else to say, you know what I mean? Like, for reals. By the way, if you guys have any questions, go on ahead and ask me, so we can, we continue, talking here. But look at this person right there, selling chickens, selling animals. That person doesn't have any kind of, nobody here. By the way, this is El Tianguis de San Roque. So that's like that's the biggest flea market in the city. And, outside of paying some, flea market fee, permit, whatever it is. Again, not everybody, that guy singing definitely didn't, is not paying any kind of fee. But long story short, outside of just paying a fee, you're good to go. You know what I mean? Like, you can sell and do whatever you want there. That's a restaurant, they're selling roast chicken that was right by the flea market. Amazing stuff. And again, that restaurant just has the basics, when it comes to, a business license, food handler's license, and that's about it. And they could just, sell their chicken. And they don't need to be dealing with, the government like as much as you do in the USA. Trust me, I used to, be in the restaurant business, and it's a pain in the ass. All right. So, you got the baseball game there. It's amazing stuff. But yeah, look, again, it's funny enough that I randomly picked this video today, to show you guys. But it's funny enough because this is a very old video with a lot of footage, from back during the COVID days. And that showed you all the freedom you need to see right there. At the end of the day, there was a few rules and regulations that, people were saying, hey, can you comply by these and blah, blah, blah. And people were just really more complying, not because of the government. I mean, look at me, I wasn't complying. You know what I mean? They were just complying because of the people around them. They were just trying to be nice and trying to be, you know what I mean? Respectful of people around them and things like that. But, you know me. All right. So at the end of the day, yeah, I wore it when I had to wear it, more out of respect than anything else, but it wasn't mandatory at all, period, end of story, I'll tell you that. And, yeah, I documented the whole thing, constantly. See, my wife is a little bit more respectful than me, but, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I was not getting harassed. Nobody cared. If anything, people didn't see me with a mask and they were scared of me. They just, they weren't, trying to kick me out of whatever place I was in. No, they would just move away from me, sit away from me. They're like, oh, get away from that guy. You know what I mean? That guy, look at him. He's spreading germs. Scary. And that's fine. You know what I mean? Look, it's great. You know what I mean? I have more room to myself and I had to worry about it. So it was, yeah, again, look, he's not wearing a mask. Oh, the name of the baseball team here in the Yucatan is Los Leones. Okay? Los Leones, the Lions. I know people are like, well, why do they call the Lions? There are no lions out here in the jungle. I think it's because there was a local, there is a local company that makes like, I want to say like cookies and things like that. And their mascot is a lion. And they were the original owners of the team or something like that. And I think that's why they're called the Lions, Los Leones de Yucatan. So there you go. Oh, shout out to Christian there. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, out here, people, again, they're a lot more respectful. People are a lot more nice out here. And, during those years, that's really what cemented the fact that, no matter what's coming here in the future, again, World War III, energy lockdowns, another COVID, whatever it is, oh my God, I would rather be spending it here than spending it, back in the US or anywhere else right now. And that's the thing. It's just all these things you're going to have to look at as to, what kind of place you actually want to live in. So, oh, okay. Christian says, okay. It's because there used to be, or maybe there still is, there's a beer company called Leon. which means lion. So they're sponsored or by a beer company. They're named after the beer company. In fact, they would be like the Brewers, I guess, right? They would be like the Mexico's version of the Brewers, only they're a lion. So there you go. Interesting. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yeah, and for me personally, the reason I love living out here is because, well, you're looking at it, you know what I mean? Like, I am originally from Florida, and to me, this is as close to home as I'm gonna get. And again, as a Floridian, I mean, again, going back to COVID, I don't know why I keep, I guess bringing that up or whatever, but, going back to those years, you guys remember how Florida was the freest, state in the union, right? The most free state of all of them, right? So imagine, that's how I grew up. I grew up in that kind of freedom. I'm a Florida man, all right? You know the meme of the Florida guy. So I'm from Florida, I'm that guy. And so when I started to live in other parts of the USA, I was like, man, this is crazy how people live with all these rules and regulations and this insanity and these taxes and this and that. And I just never understood it, and then it wasn't until I moved to Florida. It wasn't until I moved to Mexico, and in particular here, to Merida, Yucatan, I was like, oh man, finally. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so to me, it's like that because the way I feel living out here is like super old Florida. For anyone that knows about Florida or whatever, old Florida, that's what it feels like out here. I mean, you're looking at it, for crying out loud, man, People constantly complain to, say, oh, don't move there because it's too hot. That's one of the main reasons I live here, because it's too hot. You know what I mean? Like, it's why would you move to Florida? You know what I mean? Unless you want to be in the heat and you want to go to the beach. And live that lifestyle and go fishing and so I don't, so to me it's like whenever anyone complains about the heat, I'm like, all right, hey, don't worry about it, don't let the door hit you on the way out. There's plenty of other places that are not as hot. They're very cooled and mild temperature, and that's it. But yeah, so I love it out here because, again, just coming from Florida, coming from that lifestyle, coming from, having that freedom, my whole life in a sense, and obviously seeing that freedom deteriorate and trying to see if I can find that freedom in other parts of the USA, only to quickly find out that it just doesn't exist anymore. And then when I moved to Mexico and I, again, immediately started experiencing real freedom, the freedom that, I grew up with. In fact, more freedom than I ever grew up with or ever had in Florida and in the USA. It's like, oh man, I am in heaven out here. Again, the good, the bad, the ugly, man. Again, I'm not saying that it's all perfect, but to me, it's like, man, I would rather, be dealing with, like I said, the things that I deal with out here than the things that I was dealing with in the USA by far. You know what I mean? It's not even, it's not even negotiable, Todo es más tranquilo. That's right. Things are just a lot more calm and relaxed out here in Merida. And that's the thing. It's like old Florida. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Again, people that know. I grew up in the Keys. Again, I was born and raised, and I grew up in Miami. But the Florida Keys are right there. Old Florida was just a few hours drive in any direction from Miami. And it was awesome. I loved it. I mean, to me, my real dream, before I ever, again, 20 years ago, my dream, was to move to old Florida. My dream, meaning, like move to like northern Florida, move to the west coast of Florida. My real dream was to move to St. Augustine, Florida, live out there, in that area. That was what I want. And then, like I said, once I got here to Merida, I was like, man, this is better. This is way better. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? So that's why I love it out here, because it's like, it's almost like, Merida feels like if, Fort Myers or, one of those West Coast cities, married St. Augustine in that area. Because it has like the old school charm, all that stuff from St. Augustine, from 500 years ago, the buildings and, if you know anything about that area. And then it has like the new everything, you know what I mean? The new gentrification of, so like what you see out there. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. So okay, you know about St. Augustine. Yeah, you know about, yeah. So yes, St. Augustine. So to me, a Florida guy, you know what I mean? That's me. You know what I mean? I love Florida. I love everything about it. And but unfortunately, as you guys know, Florida's not what it used to be. It wasn't what it used to be when I left close to 15 years ago. And to me, yeah, when I found out, when I found this area and I really settled out here, man, like I said, this is why I love it out here. I travel to other parts of Mexico, but no way, man. Like I'm not going to live in Guadalajara. I love Guadalajara, but I couldn't live there. That's like living in LA. I would, again, LA is awesome. I love LA. But, I mean, come on, man. I would rather live in like Vero Beach, or whatever. I don't even know what Vero Beach looks like these days, but you know what I mean. And so this is as close as I'm going to get to that out here, and I think for a lot of people too, what I mean? This is why, a lot of you guys love this area, because it's that charm. It's that old school vibe and charm and lifestyle that people, still live in some part. Again, you go to Key West, there's still people living like I'm living out here. But again, go try and live in Key West. You know what I mean? You need to have like $250,000, a month or something. You need to have money. So it is what it is. Out here, come on now, look at this. This is at a friend's house, at a pool party, and, we're all starving artists there. Look at that, enjoying, my best life. We're out there having our best life out there. Look at that. We got Christian there. Shout out to her. A few beers in, So yeah, man. But yeah, it's funny. So I'm reading a few comments, guys. Just reading the comments section there. But yeah, I mean, to me, I love it out here. Because again, just maybe because of the way I grew up and the environment I grew up in, and again, just the lifestyle I grew up in. The only place I'm gonna find it is out here in Mexico, and out here in Yucatan specifically, because obviously, other parts of Mexico are very different. But this part is like Florida, man. You know what I mean? Like for real, it's very similar vibes, very slow vibes. Again, island vibes. We are in the Caribbean after all. Just like Florida's in the Caribbean too. Some people don't know that, but most of Florida is in the Caribbean. Mexico's in the Caribbean, things like that. So yeah, it's just a different vibe and a different lifestyle. It's a lot slower lifestyle, things like that. Because again, growing up in Miami, everything was always like go, 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 very fast. But you all you had to do was just leave Miami, like just go in any direction, and it was slow vibes, all over again. Again, as slow as it's gonna get, for the US and stuff like that. And again, things were very different many years ago. Again, when I grew up in Florida, 20, 30 years ago, man, so different than today. I look at what's going on over there today, and it's like, man, sucks. You know what I mean? It's I feel bad. I feel bad for Florida as a state, but it is what it is. Again, even with all the problems Florida's having, even Florida is constantly growing, and constantly the most desirable state, I don't know, anyways, but the most desirable state and things like that. And so same thing with out here, out here, this area is growing exponentially. It's becoming one of the most desirable places in Mexico, if not the most desirable place in Mexico. I understand it's not for everybody. If you're the more of the cosmopolitan, younger vibe crowd, you might be in Mexico City. Again, you're a digital nomad, whatever, Mexico City, Guadalajara, those places might be best. But if you're looking more for like a slow vibe, slow lifestyle, chill life, whatever age you're at, man, this is where you want to be. Again, if you want a little bit more faster pace, you go to Cancun, you go all the way out there. All right. But the way I see it, yeah, this is slow vibes. This is going to continue to be slow vibes for a very long time. And if it gets too quick, just go to a village like here. This is only like 30 minutes away from the city. This is Teco, the village of Teco. We're walking around, and this is again like 30 minutes from the city. That's the same village we got married in. All right. Oh wow! Look, shout out to M Borg. Right, M Borg. Shout out to M Borg with the $30 super chat. Wow, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Shout out to you. Thank you. Thank you. Muchas gracias, señor, or señora. I don't know who's out there, but thank you. Really appreciate that. $30. So $30 would be like, what is it now? Like 700 pesos, I think. 600 pesos with 600 pesos. Or maybe, 500 pesos with the exchange rate. Either way, thank you. It's a lot of pesos. Thank you very much. Oh, man. Let me see. Oh, who donated? Who donated 10 minutes ago? Someone donated? I only got one donation here for 30. I don't know who. I mean, so anyway, shout out to M-Borg with the $30 super chat. But it shows me here on my thing, my thingamabob. I only got one donation. So anyway, if another one came through and I missed it, I apologize. Unless you guys sent me like a... You got 535 pesos. I don't know. Did somebody send me a PayPal or something like that? No PayPal. Anyway, shout out to everyone out there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Definitely, I'll take out the misses. We'll go on a date night on Saturday night if weather permits. We'll go out. Thank you very much. What are we gonna go? People are like, oh, what do you go out for? Like, oh, for tacos. Don't you get tired of tacos? Yeah, sometimes, but man, tacos are just so good. Look, I don't know about you guys. Everybody has different diets out there, but I mean, I'm more of a carnivore, diet type of guy. And so I love Mexico because it's very carnivore heavy. By the way, it's very vegetarian friendly and very vegan friendly. Just naturally, there are many foods that are made that is just like the tortilla, and for example, vegetables and beans, and so there's a lot of food variety for all diets out here. But if you are a carnivore, man, you'll really love it out here. Or at least, again, I'm not a full carnivore. I love. I'm just carnivore heavy, meat heavy in my diet. Christian not so much. Christian is more vegetable heavy. And Dorito heavy. So am I. Whatever. No, but long story short, at the end of the day, yeah, like out here, the food is awesome. But either way, like if all of a sudden you want something else, Christian, she got herself some sushi, yesterday. If I want a pizza, I can get a pizza. If I want hamburgers, I just kind of make my own hamburgers, But no, but hot dogs, I get the hot dogs from Costco. These hot dogs they're not like Nathan's hot dogs, but they're very similar to like the U.S. hot dogs, that we're used to, what I'm used to. So I get them from there. So I mean, whenever I want anything else, obviously, I know how to cook. I can make all kinds of different foods. But I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, we like to, when we go out. In fact, a lot of times when we go out, we might go out to like the park, and at the park they have all the food vendors. All kinds of vendors everywhere. And that's amazing because, over there at the park, we get to eat whatever we want. A lot of times, we eat the corn in the cup. The corn that, they get corn, they put it in a cup with mayonnaise and cheese, the Mexican cheese, they put, a hot sauce in there. They put lemon. They put a bunch of crap in there. I don't know what the hell they put in there. Oh, yeah, they put like, all kinds of toppings. So I like mines with craisins, craisins. Chili craisins and these cacahuates japoneses or whatever, but they also have spicy, whatever, man. Just junk food, man. But yeah. It's awesome out here. It's like, Jose, you got to mix it up the menu sometimes. Get a quesadilla. Oh, yeah, we have quesadillas. We have all that shit. Yeah, we have everything, man. We eat everything. We eat everything. But I mean, for me, tacos, I like the tacos because, okay, so what I do when I go to a restaurant out here is that, like, I'll go, let's say we're going to have al pastor. I'll just order straight up. Hey, let me get half a kilo. Half a kilo is a little over a pound of meat. And long story short, they'll put the meat in the table and they give us the tortillas and they give us beans and they give us salt. They give it everything, right? And so Christian will make herself like 2 or 3 tacos and then I'll eat the rest. You know what I mean? That's it. And then just, I'll only eat a few tortillas. I'm not a big tortilla guy, whatever, but, I've eaten more tortillas here, Mexico, obviously. But, again, tortilla, that's not that many carbs per se. And it's mostly just meat, just protein. So, but that, that's what we'll do. Or other places, again, there's all kinds of different Mexican food, obviously. There's places that have quesadillas out here. But obviously the quesadillas are filled with things. You could just have it plain with cheese, or you could have it with, peppers, or you could have it with meat, or you could have it with, all kinds of things. So, yeah, and that's the thing too. Things are just so much more affordable. Look, don't get me wrong. Things have gone up in price, okay? Because when I go to the taco stand, just a taco stand, just the guy selling tacos in the corner, right? Before, I used to get a lot of food, not the same taco stand, obviously, different taco stand throughout my years, right? But usually, I would be able to, get filled up, with like around, $5 to $6. And nowadays, that same amount of food, or similar, plus the exchange rate and all these other things, it's almost double the price. It's like $14, $15. Now, granted, at this point, me and Christian are eating, but what is she really adding to the bill? $3? You know what I mean? But long story short, yeah, like prices have increased, all across the board. In fact, when I look at older, my older videos like this one, and I see like the prices, what things were 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, man, yeah, they've increased. But, with that said, I mean, come on. You guys are paying $14 for a Big Mac, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? So, and I need, again, I'm a big boy. I cannot eat a Big Mac. All right. I need, multiple double cheeseburgers or multiple Big Macs, chicken nuggets, French fries. I mean, I eat a lot because I eat one time a day. All right. I fast all day. I've been doing it for 20 plus years, all right, or longer, whatever. So I fast all day and then just eat one meal. But long story short, like at the end of the day, back to basics, like, yeah, costs have gone up, but still, very manageable, like now, yeah, granted, a lot of times, like, okay, I'll go, to go get tacos, right? If I'm gonna go get tacos, it's gonna be like $10, $14, give or take, right? $15. But if I'm gonna make a meal for me and the wife, sure, I can make a simple meal, with eggs, beans, whatever, and spend under $5, or I can have a regular meal, with meat, potatoes, vegetables, whatever, right? And it's going to cost me like around $10 to $15. But think about it. That's my food cost for the whole day, all right? $15, give or take. Where, back home, come on now, you know what I mean? You already know $15 ain't enough. So, I mean, you can make it enough in the USA. Again, you're eating eggs, you're eating cup of noodles, you're eating, but it's obviously going to be $15 instead of $5. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying whatever. Obviously, you can live for cheaper here too. But I'm just, giving you kind of like a rough estimate, okay? Realistic, pricing, all right? Because the thing is that, I could do a lot of things to cut my cost. Like for example, I use olive oil. I use peanut oil. I use coconut oil. I use these things instead of using seed oils. If I were to only use seed oils, I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Like I would be, saving a lot of money. But because I use those other oils, in order to try to be healthier, live healthier, and not ingest, as much poison as possible, well, then guess what? You know what I mean? My costs are going to go up a little bit. And things like that. So that's the thing. And so, I do go out of my way a little bit, to get better ingredients, and try to eat better food. And when, the days that we don't want to do that, then that's when we go out and have some street tacos, street food, whatever it is. Okay. But even though, even with that said, if I were to have like fast food out here, meaning street tacos at the corner taco stand, it's going to be a lot healthier than if I were to have McDonald's. And McDonald's is a lot more expensive out here. So look, for example, right now, the donation that I just got from Mborg, 535 pesos. If I were to order McDonald's for me and the wife right now, it's going to cost me that. It's going to cost me that. While that same amount of money, can, be my date night and I have money left over. All right, just eating typical Mexican food. Or that could be 2 meals, okay, of regular food out here. 2 regular meals, you know what I mean? Like, again, the whole thing. Again, I'm making beef stew, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, all right? Yeah, I want to. Tallow is a little hard to find out here. I haven't really been able to find any beef tallow out here. But yes, if I would have access to beef tallow, I would use that. But I use but what we do have access to is lard. So we use lard, as well. But lard doesn't cost money. You know what I mean? Lard is inexpensive, but as you can't use lard for everything. You know what I mean? Because it has that flavor, which is great for certain things, but same as coconut oil. I'm not going to use coconut oil for everything. The oil I use for almost everything is olive oil. That's my go-to oil for everything. But yeah, you know what I mean? Now again, if we go into World War III and we have an energy crisis and all that crazy stuff happens, I'm going to be concerned more about my olive oil than anything else. All right? Things like that. You know what I mean? That's probably one of the only things, that I'll be worried about. Because, I'm sure someone can make, eventually start producing olive oil here in Mexico, but, it's not the same. So, beef manteca. Well, okay, remember, every part of Mexico is different. So, out here in the Yucatan, people eat more pork than they do beef, and there's more pork available than beef, so that's where you're gonna find lard everywhere. But in the north of Mexico, when there's more beef than there is pork, you're probably gonna have more access to finding beef. So not just beef, but beef tallow. But look, regardless, Tress, I'm gonna ask for that, okay? I'm gonna see if I can find it. I'm just gonna say beef manteca. I'm gonna say manteca de res to see if it's out there. But yeah, I haven't really found it out here. But that's the thing, like pork fat you find everywhere. You go to a little corner store, and they have it there. They have it everywhere. Yeah, Sammy says, to eat healthy in the U.S., it costs 3 times more than Mexico, and it's not even considering the crop. Yeah, so that's a great point you make there. So here, it's the opposite. Here, if you want to eat healthy, it's more affordable. And if you want to eat junk food, you want to eat, you want McDonald's, you want Doritos, you want Coca-Cola, you want, Twinkies, that's going to cost a lot of money. That's going to cost an astronomical amount of money, all right, compared to, regular food, regular tacos, regular anything. So, that's the thing. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. Because you make a great point, because in the USA, in fact, one of the good things about California that I enjoyed about living there was that there was a lot more access to health food there, and health food was a lot more affordable, believe it or not, in Los Angeles in California than it was in other parts of the country. That's for sure. But outside of LA, again, LA, everything's crazy expensive, but outside of, yeah, health food is insane expensive everywhere. And now here's not like, obviously, there are certain health foods, there are certain health supplements, they're going to be expensive, okay? They're going to be expensive here as well, but not as expensive as back home. And like I said, out here you have a lot more access to actual health food, actual health plants, actually organic things. You can actually get it from the source out here, all over Mexico. That's a big difference, as opposed to, getting some prepackaged, whatever it is, health food. Out here you actually get it from the barrel type of thing. So, again, you can see it in the market, you see it everywhere. So, yeah, man, 100%. I used to eat a lot of Twinkies, that's for sure. Not anymore. But yeah, I'm a fat kid at heart, man. In fact, living in Mexico, I'm at my lowest weight. The only time I was at a lower weight by just a hair was when I was living in LA, but that's because I was starving to death, all right? But other than that, right now I'm pretty close to like my lowest weight, because yeah, back in the US, I was like pushing 280 pounds. I'm like 215, give or take right now. Give or take. No, but yeah, like 215 or lower. Definitely not higher, okay? I literally weighed myself not that long ago, so. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's like out here, it's easier to be healthy. It just happens automatically. In fact, I hear it all the time. When people, when they travel outside of the USA and they go anywhere, all right, and then they come back to the USA, and how immediately they start getting bloated and fat and feeling unhealthy and all this other stuff. So yeah, I know. I got to get back to the cooking channel. But man, I mean, the cooking channel is just so difficult, man, to produce and make and do all this stuff. And it's like, I'm only one guy at the end of the day. I mean, one day in the future, I really do want to, focus on cooking and doing that kind of stuff. But man, for now, yeah, man, I gotta, my time is finite. I only got so much time. And like, this is why I'm doing all the videos I'm doing on Unleashed. By the way, guys, shout out to everyone out there. In fact, if you guys want to do me a favor, if you guys really love me, all right, don't like and subscribe this video. Actually do, if you want to. I'm out here putting negative thoughts out there. No, listen, yeah, please like and subscribe, blah, 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 yada, yada. But anyways, if you really, really, really love me, all right, you really want to do me a favor, go to my other channel. Go like and subscribe over there. Go watch my videos over there. I think a lot of you guys will enjoy them, okay? Not everybody. I understand it's not for everybody. But if you like these live streams, if you like to really hear my thoughts on things, all right? If you really want us to go deep with me, then go check out my other channel. I put the link in the description. I got the, I put the link in the chat as well. But please, that would make my day. That would make me so happy, if you go show me some love over there. But yeah, every single day I post videos up there. And the thing is, it's like, again, I have a lot of loves, a lot of things that I love to do. And I spent a good majority of my life cooking. And as much as I want to cook and make videos and things like that, I got to pay the bills, and so like the reality is that these are the things that help me pay the bills. I mean, these channels and doing these things, which I love to do. Okay, ironically, I love to do these things, but this is what I got to focus on right now. But eventually down the line, yeah, for sure, 100%, I want to focus on the cooking channel. Again, it's if you want the cooking channel, you guys can go check it out there. I post there periodically, so you guys can check those out there if you want as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I got to post more there, and I want to, but man, it is a real labor of love over there, because, for sure, it takes a lot more time and effort just to get like 100 views, where, out here, I got like 100 viewers right now, in a sense, so it's a big difference, so, that's, that's the reality of it. So, but anyways, long story short, on my other channel here, I post every day, Monday through Friday, and I go live from time to time over there, but and yeah, out here, like, I get to share my thoughts, and I get to, again, really go deep, and this is something that I can produce every day, as opposed to cooking, where it's like, making a cooking video sometimes takes me days just to, get it, from finish to beginning to end. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, trust me, I know, man. If anyone beats me up over this, and enough is me. I'm constantly beating myself over enough with this. Eventually my dream, what I would love to do, again, I love making videos, I love doing all this stuff, but yeah, my dream is to be able to, what is it, like, focus only and solely on the cooking channel. But that's like way down the line. I mean, like, I gotta set myself up to get there. So again, enjoy me while you can on these channels. Because once I make it big, eventually, I want to just focus on the cooking, all right? And again, I mean, you see, look at this one. I'm here, we went somewhere locally and things like that. So I show you my meat order there. So again, I'm trying to marry both channels here. You can check those out if you want. And show you, kind of like what my day's like over there. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, I would love to have like my own, just like my own cooking show, and just focus on that. That would be awesome, but yeah, honestly, in order to really make that happen, I need money, I need a team, I need, it's a lot of moving pieces, all right, to really make it work, make it happen. Right now, I can make it work all on my own, just me and the horse, that's right, don't forget about me. That's right. So, got Lambo back there, working the controls. So yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, it is what it is. So what else? Where were we? So, anyways, all right. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I think we. Oh, that's right. I gotta get out of here. All right, guys. In fact, do you guys have any more? If you have any comments, any questions, anything, and last call, guys, last call before I gotta get out of here, because I gotta actually have a Zoom meeting. All right, I gotta have what is it, like a personal consultation. I got a consultation with one of you guys as soon as I'm done with this. So again, let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to cover before I head out of here. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and yeah, you know what I mean. Again, at the end of the day, the freedom out here. I know this video was the live stream was a little bit all over the place, but to me, the best way I can describe the freedom out here is just my daily videos. You get to see it all the time. The freedom you have here is unmatched. Again, the camera doesn't lie, right? Your eyes, won't lie. Again, if you don't, want to see it for yourself, that's another story. But out here again, that's why I like to do what I do here. Just show you guys, and you guys can make your own determination. So it is what it is. But anyways, guys, I think that's it. We got no more questions, no more comments, no more anything. Again, big shout out to M Borg, with a $30 super chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. It's very nice of you. Much appreciated. Thank you again for everyone that liked the thing, the channel, the video, whatever. Everyone that's watching, everyone that's hanging out with me. Again, you already know how we do here. Every single Tuesday, every single Thursday, I upload a video. Every single Thursday, we go live. So again, Sunday, Tuesday, upload videos. Again, if I produce more, I'll drop them periodically. But again, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Sorry. Little brain fart there. Yeah, I got to take a break before I... Anyways, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Sorry, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. All right, so I'll see you guys here Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I hope you guys enjoyed Sunday's video. And I hope you guys enjoyed Tuesday's video. And I hope you guys, well, stay awesome. You guys know how we do here. So with all that being said, you already know how we do here. Thanks again. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share. Please hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing whenever I drop a video or whenever I go live. But more important than anything else, please stay awesome. All right, and for whoever was asking about the restaurant and the Ermaling, here it is. We'll end it there with this. And again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks again. And see you later, alligators. All right, look, that's a shrimp right there you guys were asking for before I get out of here. There you go. The ceviche. Later, guys.